Yeah, we got to do a lot of backstory, I think, for all of this. But the important news story everyone's waiting to hear our opinions on is, of course, the acquisition of the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp and the Akron Rubber Ducks, which is big baseball news that I'm sure you're extremely caught up on and ready to talk about.
So, this is the sale to the Prospector Baseball Group, right?
Oh no, you did know. I was trying to throw you a curveball to get you off.
Listen, you're gonna ask me a question about one of my farm teams, the Akron Rubber Ducks, the AA affiliate of Cleveland Guardians. I don't know what the implications are, but basically, those two teams were owned originally by a group called the Fast Forward Sports Group, and both of them were sold over to the Prospector Baseball Group for ownership.
Rubber Ducks is an incredible name for an Akron, Ohio team because that's where all the rubber companies are from.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why the logo has like little tire treads on it and stuff.
It works on like 4 different levels.
I believe Akron, Ohio is currently referred to as Polymer Valley is what it is.
Oh, that's fun.
I think that it's because now it's not so much a tire focused area, but just general polymer research. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What is it about Akron, Ohio, where people want to get weird with goo? They just want to see what they can make out of slimes.
I think it's kind of a byproduct of the automotive industry that was shared between the Rust Belt as a whole, because Toledo was glass manufacturing. And fiberglass and stuff like that. It's basically a suburb of Detroit and such. So I am assuming that's partially where it came from. But in terms of other reasons why Akron became kind of a hub for tire manufacturing and stuff like that. So
I'm glad you're in an informative and intelligent mood today, because you're going to have to do even more than you usually are tasked with when we review a book, because you are Pathfinder. Is it too much to say expert?
No, it is way too much to say.
Okay.
It is far too much to say because I've only been playing in Pathfinder for several months, and I have several friends who are much deeper lore hounds relating to it than I would be. But I can at least give context to some of what we're going to be talking about when we get to the Draconic Codex.
I would love some context for the Codex, some Codex context. I thought this would be a kind of breezy read. You know, some people in the Discord are posting pictures of the new dragons from this Draconic Codex. Hard to say, Draconic Codex. And I was like, yeah, I'll skim some stat blocks. I'll look at some guys. Big Lizard, that's cool. What a dense read. 250 pages of just nonstop detail. A really high quality product here.
Yeah, like... One thing that I will say about Paizo, and this is something where when talking to some folks in the server, it comes up. It's like one of the strengths that they have with Pathfinder that they really embrace is having a pretty robust amount of lore about this world that's fairly compatible with a lot of different types of games you might want to run, a lot of different campaigns you want to run. But instead of being like how Wizards has progressively released less and less content that's lore building and world building, Paizo has leaned harder into that. I think another reason why they do so is because when you think about the business model, the rules for Pathfinder are free. So like right now, you don't need to buy a copy of the Draconic Codex to read up about the Dragonet player option on Archives of Nethys, or go on Path Builder for free and make a Dragonet or a new dragon Draconic bloodline sorcerer character using these new rules. All that's available for you. But when it comes to like the world building stuff and a lot more of the lore about these dragons and about how they play into things, that's what you're paying for, along with the other side benefits that come with having a physical copy or a digital copy of the book proper.
Great segue, because I was going to ask you about acquiring this product, and I know you got it digitally, you ran into some problems. I'm interested in hearing about that. I will say for my purposes, I did try to check local bookstores to find it physically to support the company, and no one has it, so I did end up getting the PDF as well.
Yeah. So what happened was when I was on the Paizo store, which is a fairly new thing, I tried using the quick checkout, using the PayPal stuff without going through the regular checkout, and it there was an issue in the back end where it would charge my card but not finish the transaction. Ultimately, what happened was that those transactions got just canceled out after a few hours, so they didn't ultimately stick. But I just had to go buy it the normal way through the online store. And then I just went to my library. And one of the other things that's kind of cute about how they package their PDFs, they've been doing this ever since Pathfinder First Edition, is you can download a PDF that's the entire thing, but they also provide per chapter separate PDFs. So if you wanted to do like a handout of just one section of the book to somebody, you could do that effectively. So, which is another neat detail about it. And also their PDFs are extremely well made. They have really good bookmarks. They have good tables of content set up on there and such. So, like, they're not really cutting any corners when they make these products here.
I think $30 for the PDF, $60 for the physical book.
Something like that. And like you said, that's a little bit of a premium compared to some other products. But when you look at the volume of stuff that's in here, it's pretty dense. It's pretty robust. And I mean, we're not going to go through every single detail in here because we have 40 different dragon types in here.
Yeah. Now I'm a fast reader, but this took me like multiple days longer than I thought to get through. It's a lot of stuff. So yeah, we're not going to go like page by page or anything. We'll give you an overview and our thoughts on it. And any other preamble context? Like, okay, so Pathfinder kind of started as a spin-off of Dungeons and Dragons. It's its own thing now. They're in their second edition. And why are they redesigning all these dragons? I kind of half know this story.
Yeah, so the basic of it is that the origin of Paizo and Pathfinder began kind of as D&D went from 3rd to 4th edition, due to various things, including them wanting to basically changing their relationship with Paizo as the publishers of Dragon Magazine. In addition to that, changing the way the licensing worked for D&D. Basically what Paizo had did was they took the existent system reference document, the open game, the OGL of 3rd edition D&D, and made a spin-off of it, Pathfinder, which was totally legal at the time due to licensing and stuff like that. Later on, they made Pathfinder 2nd edition, which ironically has a lot of parallels with D&D 4th edition in terms of how the mechanics feel and stuff. But after the OGL fiasco that happened during the lead up to the 2024 edition of the D&D rules, it basically became clear that building a game that was built off of the OGL text was something that felt like you were running on borrowed time. So Paizo, about a year or so ago, released a remastered set of rules for Pathfinder 2nd edition. So for the most part, the game still plays the same. There are some balancing tweaks that have happened and such, but examples of some of the rule changes was, for example, now your ability scores don't increase. They don't increase like they do in Dungeons and Dragons, where you have like a standard number and then you derive a modifier. Your ability score is just the modifier now. Like, it's just codified in the rules that way.
Simpler, cleaner.
Simpler, cleaner.
Facebook, drop the.
Yep. When you, for example, any spells that kind of are very D&D code in terms of their naming scheme got renamed. So a common one I'd point to is the spell Magic Missile. It's now Force Barrage, as an example. And this is just simply a way of just making sure that there's nothing in the vocabulary that carries over from D&D. But then we get to the second D in D&D, the dragons. And so one of those things that was kind of carried over from Dungeons and Dragons was the metallic and chromatic dragons. And in the remaster, what Paizo decided to do was basically make new dragons all together to replace these, instead of just coming up with like a different type of metal dragon or a different color. So instead of having like, stainless steel and taupe dragons,
I seriously considered a taupe dragon for season 12. I ultimately went with Puce, but taupe was my second choice. So
the point here is that the dragons they came up with, they've sort of refactored them to be more tightly ingrained with the world building and lore of Galarian, which is the setting for Pathfinder as a whole. And this is sort of embodied right away at the very beginning of the Draconic Codex by sort of framing the dragons as sort of being derived from the 4 different magic traditions of Pathfinder: arcane, divine, occult, and primal. And so you can kind of look at all the dragons, the dragon gods, and everything else, and kind of loosely associate them, or really strictly associate them with these different arcane traditions, these different magical traditions, as a way to sort of understand how they interact with the world and how they relate to the world.
Definitely. I mean, Dungeons and Dragons was also redesigning its I'm going to say the word dragon so many times. I'm sorry. I mean, this feed has been that word over and over for the last year, regardless. But they've been like the gold dragon was recently redesigned to be like a more sleek, longer dragon and stuff.
Yep.
So people have been trying to revamp this stuff for a while, which is something I, of course, famously said on this show, is that I didn't have anything interesting to say about dragons. So my Dungeons and Dragons podcast had no Dungeons and no Dragons until I actually, worked my way around to doing a whole dragon season, because then I had enough time to go deep on like context and culture and stuff. Yep. With all that said, if I had been working with these dragons, that would never have been the policy. There's way more here to work with, like right off the bat.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. We'll get to the field guide and the bestiary of like what the Paizo dragons are now like. But I think one thing that's really fascinating about them is that they kind of draw attention to themselves, because instead of being associated with like colors or metals and then having some sort of sub-derived association, just the name of the dragon kind of makes you ponder, what does that mean? And it kind of invites you to figure out more about it. And we probably both have some of our favorites. We're going through the whole list, but I'll be honest that one of the things I found really kind of fun to read was literally just the opening few chapters, where it goes over a little bit about the physiology and then the gods, the dragon gods themselves. Because I saw the dragon god section, I'm thinking, oh man, this is very Austin Yorsky dice funk coded in terms of how this thing's written up.
I'm glad you think so. That jumped out to me as well. I was expecting, some pretty stock standard Tolkien stuff, but no, it really seems like they put a lot of thought into it, which I really appreciated. And it was just immediately attention grabbing. I was like constantly showing my girlfriend Jo. It's like, oh, look at this fucked up weird dragon. Look at this shit. Look, they got it's like a fetus. That's crazy. And people people were sending me on the Discord like, oh, this is a Cymbeline ass dragon here. Or like, oh, look at this round fuck. Just we're gonna get to them. They're all very good though. So I mean,
they're all very good.
Incredible first impression, obviously, and a lot of dice funk connections. So yeah, we can start right at the part where you were just saying about the kind of the biology. Why was that hard to say? The biological context, where it gives you like the almost standard dragon life cycle stuff, where it's like first they're a baby and then they get to this like young age and then they become eventually become ancient, and it's not that different from D&D stuff, but I noticed it is a longer timeline than at least a lot of the D&D stuff, because we've talked about this season a lot about how old the dragons are, and they have the gerontocracy, which is ruled by the oldest and stuff. I immediately jumped out to me that these dragons appear to be even more ancient than some of the other ones.
For sure. And I think that also kind of plays well into them being kind of propped up as being kind of beings of magic in and of themselves. This becomes very sort of like clear when you look at the decay section on page 10, where they kind of really emphasize about as they die, their magic gets released back into the universe in its purest form, and that has these interesting implications on the terrain, the flora and fauna about them and such. So it creates these things as being entities that are, they're the closest sort of thing is like magic incarnate in some ways, right?
There's a great part in this season of the show where I say something to Dan like, dragons aren't lizards. And, Dan says, yeah, like dragons are willpower. Like they are, they are like force manifest. They just happen to look like lizards sometimes. And that stuff really comes across here. We also get some great details about like the different the mating habits, I guess. Like almost every section goes into that, which I thought was interesting, because it is such a focus for us this season, where all of the characters are related and it's all about their parents and lovers and so forth. But yeah, it's like some dragons basically abandon their eggs. Some are pretty good parents. There's a great section in the Omen dragon where it's like, because they have like a foresight of the future, they build a starter layer for their baby, which the baby's often abandoned, but then come back to later realizing it was right for them all along. And I was like, fuck, that's I wish I had thought about that. That's so good.
Omen dragons are great because again, it's like again, you one of the things I think anyone will appreciate when they get into the bestiary, we'll get there later on, is just the first paragraph does a really great job of setting the tone of what the rest of this fucking dragon's business is going to be about.
Yeah, the writing's really good. I often roll my eyes at fantasy writing because it's like, the Thunder Sword Mick Handsome Chin goes on an adventure to slay the evil demon king, and I'm just making the jack off motion. But like in this book, there's some great sections where it's like, imagine a cat. Now imagine the cat was bigger. Now imagine it shoots lightning. That's a cloud dragon. I was like, that's funny. That's some shit I would have said.
There's a lot of good. I love the balance between writing something that has a bit of weight to it, but also is kind of silly in a way that could kind of spark a either dramatic or comedic sort of interaction. And there's a lot of that can be found in things across the way. When you to kind of roll back to the physiology section and such, I mean, I think it's just neat how they go into the anatomy and they go down. The first section is just the blood of dragons being very special, which is true. It's just kind of fun to think about. We're going to talk about their blood, their bones, their claws, their jaws even,
I mean, that stuff's coming up this season. There's a whole subplot about dragon blood in our thing. Obviously, people are always making dragon scale armor and stuff. Someone has a dragon claw. It's all really good. And it, like you said, it sets up like stuff that you could use in a variety of campaigns. Or, like if you want a serious, like grounded political campaign, like there's stuff there for you. If you want to goof around with your fuck nugget friends and do whatever, you could do that too.
And honestly, that kind of transitions well into then the 4 types of dragons that you get introduced to. And you have the arcane, the occult, the arcane, divine, occult, and primal dragons. And I love in this section just the representatives they have, because you just get introduced right away to the Vorpal dragon, and you're just like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah. So I'm not as familiar with the world building of Golarion, this setting. So I wouldn't have been able to tell you the 4 types of magic off the top of my head, even though I've read some Pathfinder books before. So that they give you enough context, but also kind of like whet your appetite for more. Like, oh shit, actually I should read more of this now because I am genuinely interested.
And like what's cool about doing this is, again, it kind of presents a different way of thinking about how the dragons exist. There's mechanical implications, but after you kind of read this a bit more, once you get to the actual dragon types themselves, it's actually not too hard to intuit what sort of magical tradition they're kind of representatives of. I mean, of the 4 that you get presented at first, which one of those 4 jumped out to you, and why was it occult?
Yeah, the spookiest ones. The stat blocks have little tags and stuff. I'm obviously not as practiced at looking at those sort of things as I am at Wizards' version of it, but it all seems like really well laid out. I could play this. I know you're playing in a Pathfinder, and Dan's always trying to bully me into playing other games. I definitely could see us playing Pathfinder down the road. I don't want to make any promises, but like I get it. It's it's not a matter of like I think it's a bad product. It's just like we'd have to just shift production gears. It's a whole thing. But
yeah. And there's definitely a lot of things that get reinforced by it. I think, again, even a book like this can help onboard you to understand not only how the game mechanically kind of works in some ways because of how the stat blocks are written, but also just get an idea of what type of vibes you can kind of get across in there. And there's so much of that we get into later on when we look at the dragons. But I'll tell you what, one section I actually found myself reading a few times over because I just thought it was really kind of nice was just the dragon god section. I thought that was one. It has a cute ass little picture of dragons, like putting little tributes in front of a statue at the very beginning. Very good art.
Oh yeah, we gotta talk about the art. I was surprised. It's 250 pages or whatever, all very high quality. Is any of this stuff reused? I wouldn't have an eye for it compared to you probably.
Oh, a good amount of it couldn't be because again, a lot of these dragon types were invented for the remaster. Like an example, I believe I know that the Mocking Dragon is new, for example. I have I'm not sure if the Despair Dragon is new or not. Actually, there is a way to tell. So the Despair Dragon already existed. It's when you get to the bestiary section. That's when you see things like the Barrage Dragon, the Delight Dragon, the Sage Dragon. Those are some of the new ones I believe that were made. But even then, I think all the art for this was basically kind of newly done in this case.
Fucking Wizards reusing Magic the Gathering art for half their books these days, so pretty embarrassing for them. All right, we are going to move on to the Dragon God stuff. I just last thought about dragon biology is they do go with the same thing we do on our show, which is that when the dragons get older, they do age a little bit. Like I can just read, it says their wings tear, their scales grow sparse, their teeth chip, and their gums rot. But the magical energies that flow through a dragon only increase as the years pass, which is like one of the first things we established about Orlando in the season is like he's getting slow, his joints are creaky, but he's like never been more able to kill everyone in the world. And I was like, hell yeah, that's exactly the
you can almost imagine it like the life cycle of a star to a certain degree, right? You know?
Yeah, that's good. So yeah, there's a lot to talk about, but let's talk about the Dragon God. So I was unfamiliar with this story. I assume that some of this was already in there, but like
I think so, yeah.
Bahamut and Tiamat are like part of my cerebral cortex at this point. I didn't even need to look any of that stuff up going into the season. So
the first dragons were Apsu and Sarshalatu. And so you can kind of view those as sort of like the divine first parents. And from my recollection, and you can correct me if I misremember this, the story that kind of proceeds for the first dragons kind of goes over how, you know, they come together, existent comes to be, and then there is this first clutch of eggs, and of that clutch, the first that was born was Dahak. So their first child, a new god without any knowledge about what they're supposed to do. They get tasked to help build the world with Apsu, and at some point, Dahak basically becomes so, I would say disillusioned, but sort of like, you know, so caught up in their responsibilities and otherwise that they just wanted to tear everything the fuck down, kills off most of their siblings before flying off, and Apsu wanted to kill their son, but Sarshalatu was like, no, you can't do that, and thus kind of sets up some of the initial sort of divine forces. Then the other siblings that remained were able to be born. In the case of one of them, Brixori, she was already born, but so puny that she was ignored by her brother in some respects. And so the ones that remained created the majority of the various dragon gods, those being Apsu, Brixori, Dahak, Gasham, Garhaz, Otalaz, Sarshalatu, Turvu, and Uliluma are the dragon gods that are listed in this section of the book.
So a lot more fleshed out, a lot of stuff going on there. It's also a lot more complex, like in D&D. Tiamat is evil and has 5 heads. Bahamut is good, has 1 head. That's kind of the whole thing. There's also Sardior, the gem dragon god, but no one gives even a slight fuck about that. That's the end of it, honestly. I mean, you could. There's a couple of like canonical adventures where people go to Avernus to bonk Tiamat on the face a little bit, but it doesn't matter. Here, there's like this whole storyline about like the crushing expectations on the first child, and I mean, Dahak looks hella evil, so I don't think it was ever gonna turn out to be like, you know, a friendly neighborhood dragon. He did kind of have a
it resembles I would say kind of an anthropomorphic religion construction, right? The idea of having these divine parents, their first son that somehow forsakens their ideals and thus creates these opposing but necessary forces, right?
Yeah, it gave me like Egyptian mythology kind of vibes where people are betraying each other and like, you know, killing people, scattering their body in the Nile, and sometimes, you know, people are coming back or whatever. It's big and epic. And then there is a bunch of weird little wrinkles, like the mother of dragons is like this infinite, endless thing that's like kind of crazy to think about. And one of the children was smashed in their egg, and so they're like unborn, real and not real. Crazy, very cool. That's a whole campaign right there.
Right. And one other thing that I think helps a lot when it comes to reading this section in particular is that the gods that are listed are presented just like any other god is in Pathfinder. So you see the name, the title, the areas of concerns, edicts, anathema, divine attribute, holy symbol, sacred animals, if any, sacred colors, devotee beliefs, and then further stuff about all that. And so it provides just a lot of fun details that gives you, without needing to read a whole lot, a good idea of what the flavor and the vibes of a particular god deity is about, you know?
I'm a big fan of the like rigid format thing. Like when I was writing up the dragons for season 12, I had basically the same thing where it's like breath type, horde type, layer type,
Yep.
and then I can just copy that 15 times and fill it out for each dragon. So I think that's very smart. Although none of them have sacred animals, I don't think that doesn't really apply. So.
Well, no, actually, that is Brixori.
Oh, it has the dragonfly.
Has the dragonfly.
This is one of the first pictures you sent me when you started reading, because Brixori is wearing a cool little hat, which is a great look for a dragon.
But we also have Gasham has the draft lizard because they're the architect. You have Odalaz, who has the Amphibana. That's the one of all. So like, and then what's also really funny, Yaluma has non-venomous snake as their sacred animal, and then Sarshalatu has all for sacred animal. Just all.
Greedy. But yeah, there's a lot here. All these deities are like way more fleshed out than the equivalents in the other product. I'm going to try not to compare it to D&D in every respect, but you know what I'm saying. I feel like I could do a whole campaign around each of these, and there is more just to think about in terms of like the history of this world, where dragons seem like really cool and important and well thought out. There's a lot of detail we're going to get into about like some dragons who are part of society, some who are far away as possible, and there's like an explanation. There's a logic to why that stuff is the case. So all this is very good, very impressive. I'm trying not to show my hand too early, which is like, this might be the best tabletop book we've ever reviewed for the show.
So I will ask you two questions, Austin. Number one is, which of the dragon gods you're like, hell yeah, the most for?
I mean, the one that immediately got me, and I think people knew because at least one person said to me, was Otilaz, the fetus dragon.
Mm-hmm.
Which is it's a very something I would do. It's very Lynchian, Cronenbergian.
Yep. I love how one of the anathema for Odalaz is literally seek immortality or enlightenment. It's like, I want to reach enlightenment. Odalaz is like, hold on here, motherfucker. You better not.
Yeah, and then of course the one with the hat, which is I think that was the one where it's like it was too small and pathetic to even bother killing, so it went off to be a big fucking nerd, which relatable.
Yep. I love how Brixori's anathema is underestimate an enemy or an ally. So I can just imagine someone being like, they see one of their friends do a cool thing. I'm like, wow, I didn't realize you could do that. Oh, shit. I underestimated you.
And I don't know enough about the Galarian world building. Is there something like more arch evil than Dahak? Because the way they talk about it is like, he's like basically the devil at this point as far as like forces of evil.
Certainly there are. I'm just not super familiar with all of the deities to kind of like make a point of comparison, but of the dragon gods, he is certainly the most destructive of them, hence his name, the Endless Destruction. But again, I've also find it interesting when you look at like the anathema for Dahak, and one of its main points is just, an anathema is just prevent the destruction of something that cannot be saved, right? Which is a very interesting line of thought. It's like, it's going to die anyway, why keep it going? Which can be a very fatalist mentality, of course, but it sort of speaks to how like how these different gods are set up. I don't know too much about the other gods off the top of my head, however, so
like there's a lot of talk in the devilish dragon part about Asmodeus, which obviously just comes from actual real world religion, but also is still, I believe, the name of the most powerful devil in the Forgotten Realms. So like there's still a little bit of crossover there. I was just curious if there's also, if there's some other devil-like figures that these people are worried about, because Dahak definitely seems to be a final boss coded.
Yeah, he could be, absolutely. I think he definitely is among those things, fairly like final boss coded for sure. In terms of like the actual gods and domains themselves, again, I'd have to dig that up to go into more detail. friend of the podcast, Runia DeWitch, who has started streaming again, she is certainly someone who is much more of an expert in that domain and such. But
yeah, I would be more interested in playing as a player in like a Pathfinder campaign and let someone else do all that work. Like I would do it for you all, but I've spent 10 years thinking about Forgotten Realms. It's time for someone else to think about Galarian.
That is totally fair. So like when it comes to any other details about this section, the last thing that you end up with the dragon gods are the pantheons. These are slightly interesting because one of the pantheons only has one dragon in it, which is the Anointing of Kings. Basically, the pantheon that just cares about noble lineages and such, so it kind of sucks, I guess. I like how one of the anathemas of the Anointing of Kings is kill the last member of a noble line, which is... And also, refusing a promotion is anathema.
They're about their bag.
Do you want to be a shift manager, Jimmy? Oh, shucks, I can't say no to that. It's against my religion to say no. And then the other pantheon we have is the Essence Dancer, which consists of four dragons that represent the four different magic traditions. Brixori, I believe, is a cult. Garhaza is primal. Turvu is I think Turvu is divine, and Yuluma is arcane. I believe that's how those four dragons parse out. So I think that's kind of a neat thing in terms of like it's a pantheon that just represents all the different domains of magic inside of the setting.
Mm-hmm. We're going to talk more about like player character options at the end, but like that's like stuff for your cleric, and then later there's stuff for a sorcerer. So a lot of utility to this book beyond just looking at pictures of cool dragons, which is honestly my number one priority. That's like I get like books of systems I'm never going to play just if they have cool pictures of monsters, because I like looking at them, and I can always make up my own, 5th edition stats or whatever. But also, there's some other stuff you can do with this book. Now we're to the big section. This is like 200 pages of big fucking dragons. We can't go through them all. We could go through them all, but, we also have to talk about baseball and Magic the Gathering at some point, so we got to parcel out our time correctly.
Yeah. So the field guide section opens with a little bit of like a page of a short story kind of giving some context. We get some insight about how do you use dragons in your campaign. And it does a good job of making a clear point about how if you want this thing to be a significant character, actually make it into a character, right?
Yeah.
Flesh them out as an NPC and such, which all makes sense, which does play well with the way that the different chapters are written up.
That's one thing that I mentioned about using dragons in other seasons, where I was like, if I put a dragon as a antagonist against you as a party of normal characters, either it kills you or it will flee if it's ever in danger. Like, you're never going to have a satisfying victory over a dragon if it's role played correctly, I think.
Right. And so, like, you got to prep for this to be a fairly high-level campaign anyways, to have it be a conflict. But even then, there's a lot of ways that the dragons are written in here to incorporate them at different levels of campaigns, because they don't necessarily have to be just adversaries or the number one villains. They can be allies. They can be just jerks, There are some dragons that can be just fucking jerks in here. We'll get to them.
Absolutely.
But then after that brief write-up, we then go straight into the various types of dragons, the 40 different types of dragons. So I guess at this point, we can kind of list them off by name in order as we go, but I'm also interested in like stopping by any particular subjects you wanted to psychoanalyze, Mr. Yorsky.
I've been podcasting long enough to know that I'm going to try to name all my favorite little details and stuff, and as soon as we end the recording, I'm going to go, fuck, I forgot to mention X, Y, and Z. That's just how it always happens, but we'll do our best. Adamantine dragon first up. My favorite detail of this was talking about how a particularly patient dragon once waited outside the lair of its prey for 1,000 years, only to snap them up on the way out. That's the kind of stuff I was trying to play with time this season. It's hard to get into that mindset of like, okay, downtime is 30 years this time, because that's dragons just do sometimes, and it's like sometimes hard to justify, because Dan's like, well, I would have done X, Y, and Z in all these years, and I'm like, yeah, you're right. So just a time is something I was thinking about with these dragons.
I like the fact that so some of these dragons will come with like named NPC examples. The one that we are given for the adamantine is Volish, and they put a little parentheses to describe the dragon. Volish is an Epicurean, male, ancient, adamantine dragon who lives in the World's Edge Mountains and loves theater so much that he's a patron for several talents and such, and has like an annual theater festival. And in addition, it then notes, some dragons prefer to watch sport, especially simulated combat, and have been known to hover over large festivals to bellow their support for their favorite players. I'm like, very funny.
We literally did that at the end of the first arc when they go to the bicentennial celebration, and there's all these sports and gladiatorial games and stuff that's happening. We had a whole conversation about that, so I'm glad they agree. And I also do like the parentheses NPCs because they don't give you that much, but it's like a starting place. There's some good ones later. There's like a dragon who's, I think they said like a sociopath or something, yes. And I was like, whoa, I don't know if I would have just said that, but interesting.
Well, one difference between this and Fizban is that Fizban's book, when it comes to the Dragonomicon and otherwise, it spends a bit of time basically giving you templates to build out different types of dragons with little tables of randomized personality traits and such. And they don't do that in here, but I feel like they do an equivalent job by doing so much depth in terms of writing up what their personalities and such are like, what their mating habits are, how they parent, and like you said, those are all details that can help get you to incorporate these characters nice and cleanly. And then when they add these NPCs that are named, it adds a little bit of fun.
Yeah, I prefer this approach. Like, I understand that everyone runs games differently. For me, having this section with like a really clear picture, then a bunch of really thoughtful, detail-rich text, and then the stat blocks, I think works a lot better than in the Wizards of the Coast books, where it's like, here's a bunch of random tables for like names and character traits or whatever. And it's like, I don't need that from you. You don't know me. So don't try to tell me that this guy is sneaky. Fuck you.
This is not being presented as a toolbox. It's being presented as a lore book,
Yeah.
One thing about these first few dragons, if you were to look at the book, is that they don't show stat blocks for the young, adult, or ancient dragons, because those already exist in the Monster Core book for a remake. So for these first few dragons, they only show the Archdragon stat blocks. That's the new thing that it brings to the table.
Yeah, I didn't know that off the top of my head, but there's some alternate abilities in some of those that are also interesting. So we'll get to that stuff. Cinder Dragon next. This seems like a pretty obvious replacement for a Red Dragon. It's just like straightforwardly fire themed and a dickhead.
Yep, I do think they do a good job stylizing it a bit there. I do like how they still have a representative. They have the Ardoslis, the ardent female adult Cinder Dragon Guardian, who was inducted into the ranks of the Anvil's Edge, which is like a dwarven champion group there. So like, there's lots of other fun little details in there. I think the art for the Cinder Dragon on page 47 is really particularly cool.
That's the one where it's like when Rex does his ability to light himself on fire.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Very good stuff. Then we get to the first dragon where I think somebody would be like, hold on, the Conspirator Dragon.
I want to say favorite detail of the Cinder Dragon, the detail about their diet, that they have to char meat to like a cinder. We talked to one of our dragons in season 12 as a chef, and so I have had them talk about like what having weird breath does to food and all that kind of stuff. I thought that was interesting. I'm glad they thought about that, because I also thought about it.
And there's other dragons where they go into their diet, which again, like, it's another great detail, because that's an easy jumping point for even like an entire session can be built around just the dietary habits of a particular dragon.
Yeah. You mentioned Conspirator Dragon. This is one where I would like show, if I was playing at a table, I would show the other people the art, because I don't think I could describe it good enough. I think that it's on a conceptual level. It's like, it's cool, but it's also out there in a way. I'm trying to remember where someone said this. They're like, can you imagine like this dragon being created at the beginning of existence, like in the backstory of the dragon gods or whatever, that has to sit around and wait until humanoids develop the court structures and like the politics so that it can infiltrate them because it's like
Hmm.
I have all these instincts and nowhere to put them.
For sure. I do think it's also fun because Conspirator Dragon is a very easy demonstration of what occult dragons are like. Like, Adamantine and Cinder are primal dragons. Conspirator is occult, and it's very obvious why. The body is weird. It is hard to comprehend, much less describe. There's like these weird tendrils all over the place. It has this forehead that looks like a face that it plays into.
It's yucky. It's got like the Pokemon Scrafty where they're like
Yeah.
skin is pants. It's like they're
Hmm.
wearing ill-fitting skin, and their kind of a gimmick is that they like disguise themselves and like become like scheming behind the scenes players. They're like a fucking Littlefinger or Varys from Game of Thrones, but
Hmm.
we've actually looking at like if I just said that to you, you'd be like, okay, it's a scheming dragon, whatever. And then you look at it, and you're like, is that a fucking pig snout on its forehead? What the fuck?
Yeah, sure. And I think some other, I believe, occult adjacent dragons, like they have disguises and such because they're more likely to kind of do things among humans and stuff like that, among people, which can do some stuff. And the thing about it is that the conspirator dragon isn't even the most fucked up occult dragon there is, because we'll get there pretty soon.
There's some real gross ones. I'm trying to think. I think my favorite detail here is that they have a bunch of disguise abilities where they can like
Yep.
change and look different ways, but then they also have detonate disguise. So
Yep.
if they get busted, they get to throw their shit away and set it off. That's just very fun. It's like a very fuck you ability to
Yep.
give it.
It's like, but like, yeah, like that's one of those things that kind of plays into like this thing's kind of fucked up, but it's also kind of funny. They have a sense of humor about themselves. Um, in terms of like fucking Monster Hunter as ass dragons, we got the Coral Dragon here. Next.
I saw this. My first thought was like, damn, I should have used this in the fucking ocean season we just
Good
did.
gosh, imagine if we had this on the ocean side of Banyan, man. This would have been
Yeah.
so cool.
It's good.
My favorite detail, because we're getting to like diets and stuff about coral dragons, that it specifies that they don't actually need to eat if they're underwater because the coral on their back sustains them and such. And I'm just like, yeah, that tracks.
Yeah, they're filter feeding out there. It's very good. They're also like bonded to the coral reef, so they can't go very far, which I think is a good hook. Where it's like if you have to do something in their territory and then run away, but they can't chase you forever. I think that's very smart. And coral is just very naturally beautiful, so it just paints a great picture.
It's they're like, yeah, it's very gorgeous. I love both of the different versions of the coral dragon. You have like you mentioned there's like the reef bond, and it becomes sickened if it moves more than 3 miles away from their reef and such. So like it's really fascinating because it kind of plays well into like what is a primal dragon like when you try to make it very tied to the terrain that it's associated with. And so, you wouldn't be chasing this around the world, but you might be communing or having to communicate with one if you happen to need to do something within its territory, because it's very territorial.
I'm definitely thinking about bringing this back for pirate season in some capacity. I don't want to make any promises, like I said, but this seems too good to pass up. And also, in season 12, if you're current with the show, we have opened a dragon door at this point, using dragon blood to create like nano machines from Metal Gear Solid that can turn people into weird dragons. And so I think we have like the lore stage is set to be like, yeah, now actually all the Pathfinder dragons are here. Like, I don't, who knows what happens? I mean, next episode, Dan could, like, get a crystal ball that turns everyone into a toad and then it's off the table. But right now, I definitely see where it's like, okay, we have chromatic, metallic, and gem dragons. And now weird new dragons are showing up because of the machinations. And that would easily justify Coral Dragon showing up in season 32 or whatever, whenever they let me do it again.
And the funny thing is that even when to tap into like the platonic idealism concept, you can honestly have dragons that are acting as sort of physical manifestations of different platonic ideals, such as the Despair Dragon.
Oh yeah, that's another spooky one. This is definitely one that I was like, look at this shit. I was just like showing people, being like, can you tell where its eyes are? This made my favorite detail is it has 3 eye like things on its head, but are apparently horn material. They're like chitinous, and then it took me forever to find the real eyes. They're so well hidden, and it's very spooky.
It's easier to see on the page 59 arc because you see a little bit of the gleam of red of where their eyes are. But yeah. And what's really fun about some of these dragons is that we look at their stat blocks. They have really particular perceptions. So, for example, the Despair Dragon has dark vision, scent as a sense, as well as fear sense, which within 60 feet, it senses all creatures within 60 feet with the frightened condition.
This one has a bunch of different cool mechanics. Like it can inflict fear and then consume fear. It has shrieking breath. We haven't mentioned too many breath weapons because a lot of the breaths so far have been, fire, rock, water, whatever. Shrieking is like one of the first really interesting ones. It's technically sonic damage, but it also creatures who fail the will save must spend the first action of their next turn doing nothing but screaming. That's good.
Yep. You have the tongue decoy, which is a very elaborate thing where it makes its tongue look like a person as bait. So I'm just like, holy shit, this anglerfish motherfucker is just...
Yeah, that's really nasty. It's like a bloodborne enemy from like the end of the game.
Absolutely. It's so sick nasty. Was there any other details about the Despair Dragons that jumped out to you?
I mean, all the stuff we said already is really good, and then there's like some more details about specifically its relationship with fear and like how, like it's obviously very gross and it wants to make people afraid, but it's a little bit more nuanced than that. And they had mentioned that just because they're scary doesn't mean they don't care for their eggs at all. I know it's just like weird little details like that. I thought that was fun because if you're a creature that's like from fucking Silent Hill, how are you finding a mate? And it's like, we thought about that.
Yeah. I like the fact that there are exceptions to this where the partners remain together for life, though it's usually more driven by the paranoia of betrayal rather than it is any sort of affection. It's like, we got to stay together because if I turn my back on you, you will stab it so fucking hard. It's like they must be the best and worst at Among Us,
Oh my god. Yeah, I honestly didn't even think about like what could be the inspirations for this, but where its tongue organ turns into a little guy could definitely be on some Among Us or The Thing type shit. Gross dragon. 10 thumbs up. 10 gnarled, melted thumbs up.
On the tip of a Despair Dragon's tongue. Yes. Yeah. We got Diabolic Dragons next.
Another fire-breathing evil one. This one's pretty simple, although I do like its very angular body with it has like a tummy knife. It's a sternum plate is jagged and broken into the shape of a wicked hook. That's good. I like it. I mean, there's a couple of sharp dragons, the Vorpal, like you mentioned, but this is another one that evokes that. And this is a pretty standard devil stuff, but it's fine. It's good.
They have 3 representative NPCs in there, and I like the descriptions. We have a tyrannical female diabolic archdragon commander, a thrill-seeking female diabolic archdragon tempter, and a quiet male diabolic dragon advocate. So like it's fascinating. Seeing some of this, and the last one is basically a description of a dragon that sort of operates under a human form in order to basically be public consul, but sort of a thing like I'll help you, but for a cost kind of deal.
There's a couple of lawyer dragons in this.
There's another one later on I'm going to talk about pretty soon that has a really fucking funny anecdote there. Actually, it's in the next section here, but for the Diabolic Archdragon, this is an example of one of the divine dragons, for example. And it kind of tracks, right? Because we're talking about being aligned with a plane itself.
Yeah, we didn't really get too much into the planar system or whatever stuff, but they have a similar structure where there's like Elysium and Hell and all that, and so they go to great pains to mention that diabolic dragons are dragons, not devils, even though they're devilish and do devil shit. They're like they don't have the devil tag in their stat block, so they're like technically separate. I don't know if that'll come up, but it's like a thing. Like if you're doing a Hell campaign, they'll be there, but not, you know, in the click.
This is one of those things that like that does matter because we have like Chthonian and Diabolic as like different types of like language of the evil domains, kind of stuff like that, right?
Yeah, there are spells like that are like, you know, abjure the unholy. A dude does X damage to devils or whatever, so you got to be thinking about that stuff.
Yeah. So once we get past diabolic dragons, we have Imperial, EMPY, real dragons.
The Empyrean is heaven, is what that word means. Although I think there is an Empire dragon later or something. It's
there are Imperial dragons in Tiansha, which is like the
China,
the China adjacent region inside, and is actually the baseline for a lot of the Eastern philosophy and religion sort of stuff that is inside of Galarian lore in general.
Yeah, I think that was something that was very popular in TTRPGs for a while and is less so these days, where it's just like, okay, well, our setting needs a China, and our setting needs an Africa, and our setting needs a Europe or whatever. And let me tell you, you don't have to do that if you don't want to. But we're getting ahead of ourselves.
But they've done that sort of stuff, and they operate in fairly good faith with what they're doing, as far as I can tell. So like it's not like the old school Oriental adventure stuff where it kind of felt like, well, literal Orientalism at play.
Yeah. But Imperial dragons are extremely good. They're holy and divine. These are almost like the equivalent of the gold dragon, I would say. And it seems like the kind of hierarchy.
I believe the gold dragon equivalent is the Vizier dragon we get to later on, but these are adjacent to that in some capacity. That's kind of the tricky things that I don't know what all the one-to-one comparisons are for all these. I will say that the Imperial dragon features my favorite lawyer. Cerelia, the bold and decisive female adult Imperial dragon lawyer who grew so enraged with the tricky words of devils that she assumed an elven form and went to law school, battling her enemies in the courtroom. Her true identity was only revealed when a legal opponent challenged her to trial by combat, whereupon she promptly reverted to her dragon form and ate her opposition to win the case.
Yeah, I wonder if that's pre-existing lore, or that's like something that happened in one of the writers' campaigns or something that has like the feel of like you won't believe what happened in our game last night.
It's pretty good though, but like it's funny going from a diabolic to like basically going from an evil to a good divine dragon, one after the other, to provide a pretty clean contrast between the two.
Yeah, I also like how even though they're pretty good, the text does give you an excuse to have them be more antagonistic, which is that they are sometimes too trusting and sometimes don't know what the correct threats are, and so you could still use them as an obstacle in your campaign. So that's good. Also, they can throw their halo, which is funny. They have a big that's stupid halo. Cool.
Yeah, the art is so cool. I love how the fact that they have like chest plate and shoulder looks like they're wearing like a breastplate armor, but that's just part of their hide. It's kind of wild. It gives them sort of a knightly sort of appearance that's very fun.
Yeah, I think this next dragon might have been the first illustration I've seen from the book. It might have been from Dan, because in season 12, I hope you're current and this isn't a spoiler, listener, but Dan's dragon has become completely infused with various treasures, which is the fortune dragon's gimmick. And I think Dan was like, holy shit, look, they're printing my character. And it's pretty good. I like this whole description thing where it also has all these abilities where it can dive into its own treasure hoard and then like shrapnel blast people with this treasure. It's good. I think this whole section was extremely fun.
For sure. And like you said, it sort of plays into like, okay, if you want to focus on a particular type of horde and then manifest a type of dragon from that horde, this feels kind of purpose built for that idea. Also, the fact that their tail has a bunch of swords melted into it is very wild.
That's very good.
Very good indeed.
So the next one, it was this horn dragon. This is funny to me because the first picture of the horn dragon does not have a particularly prominent or impressive horn. I was like, damn, how did this guy get, how did he get this name? It's like, someone being called Tall Man, and he's like 5'8" or something. I was like, I don't think that's a good idea. And then you see the later thing, and he does have a much better, cooler rhinoceros-like horn. But this is, they're not all 1-to-1. And they shouldn't be, but this seems pretty clearly like the closest to a green dragon.
Possibly. It's either going to be that or the bog dragon.
I meant from the D&D dragons.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, he's either, the green dragon's either this or the bog dragon, because they both kind of have that type of thing. Yeah. I think one that makes us kind of more akin to that is the fact that it has a miasma effect, a poison effect that certainly makes it more green coat, and it does have a poison breath. But I mean, that's kind of what's kind of neat about it, is the fact that there are like multiple versions of it. And I think eventually you stop worrying too much about whether it's a perfect 1-to-1 comparison. But
yeah, I wouldn't want that, for the record. That defeats the whole purpose. But like, there are certain tropes that, are kind of inevitable. But if you're going to have a dragon in a forest that shoots poison, that's just the first thing that comes to mind. But it does have a weird size changing horn that can be full of poison? ? What's going on there, bud?
It also has forest walk, has it's like, so if you're playing any forest lands in your set, this thing can just attack you for free, which does a lot of damage.
Also, it can break off parts of its horn and throw them like projectiles. This guy's obsessed with his horn.
Maybe that's why it's so short in the first image. Maybe they broke the whole thing off and threw it and waiting for it to come back or something, Yeah.
But yeah, I'm looking at how far we are in the book, and it's going to be a 7-hour podcast, so we can go a little faster. Mirage Dragon. What do you think about these ones? Pretty cool. This is another one I would want to show the players the picture, because I'm like, I'm not smart enough to paint this word picture. They're cool though.
They're definitely cool. They remind me about some of the other dragons that we'll see later on, like the Omen one and the Wish Dragon, in terms of dragons that play in the arcane, not all in the arcane domain, but what I like about this one is that it plays in the arcane domain. It gives an interesting description about like how interacting with them is always kind of a challenge, because like you could try to outsmart it, but you're going to believe you won no matter what happens, right?
Yeah, they're very like illusion focused. It's kind of like if we were playing this setting with the same characters, DiCaprio Devereaux would probably be a Mirage Dragon. She's all about illusions and so forth.
Yep. And they have illusion sense, appropriate.
Another good breath weapon, hallucinatory breath, causes confusion and mental damage, is pretty good. I like when they get a little weird with it. That's not like, it's not completely unheard of, but it's fun.
Yep. We move on to the Omen Dragon. This is one that you mentioned before. It has this reflective orb that grows out of its head and then becomes a separate thing. Wild. Its breath is the destiny breath, which makes people get overwhelmed by seeing all their possible futures and take mental damage from it, because they're just not ready for it. Be
slowed. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very fascinating. Like you said, the way they act as parents is very fun to read about. Just kind of.
Also, they have a what's it called? A reaction called Cheat Fate. If the dragon would take damage, they reduce them to 0. Instead, they foresee it and negate the triggering attack, avoiding all damage. That's cool. I also like there's a bit of flavor text here that maybe this alludes to something that's well known, but it says, while most of Galarian grapples with a loss of prophecy, Omen dragons have the opposite dilemma. That reads to me as if it is an established fact in this setting that people aren't getting prophecies anymore, which I think is cool. That's a good detail. I think a lot of fantasy fiction is like enthralled to the chosen one and all that stuff. So anyone who's breaking fantasy like that, I think is cool. And then, these Omen dragons can, have, if you would still want to use that kind of plot line. Do you know anything about that? Is there something happening?
So it's kind of funny because the campaign I'm currently playing in, along with one of the listeners actually now, because they joined in the campaign. It's called Stolen Fate, and it has to do with the harrowing deck, which is basically the tarot system that is inside of Pathfinder. And so we're going through a bit of that, but there seems to be like at least some campaigns that play around with this idea of like prophecy, fate, fortune telling, and stuff like that. So whether it is a grand thing across the land, I can't say for certain, but at least there's materials that play around with it. So I wouldn't be surprised if they did a remastered version of Stolen Fate or something akin to it, that an Omen dragon wouldn't show up in it, just for the purpose of being kind of like an entity that you run across. They tell you what your fate is going to be, and then you spend the campaign trying to defy it, whether or not you are able to, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've touched on themes like that before, with like the predicting the future with stars stuff in season 8, and
Yep.
all the stuff about the inevitables, trying to stop time magic and stuff. So that's the thing. Obviously, I keep coming back to. But Omen dragons rock. I think they're very cool looking. Next one, phase dragons. This is another one I immediately showed Joe, because I was like, look at these weird little fucking borzoi ass dragons, like twisting all around. They're like these very sleek, twisty guys. I don't know how else to explain it.
Yep. They have the dislocating breath, which is pretty fun to hear about, you know?
Very evocative. I immediately was like breathing on somebody, and you just hear 1,000 breaking bones as everything is dislocated. That's very cool. If you fail your save, they teleport you away.
Yeah, exactly. And like it's really wild just kind of like hearing that, because it sounds so like frightening, and but also at the same time kind of fucking cool. I also find it fascinating how you see like they're time traveling, teleportation related sort of shenanigans, all really fascinating to kind of see in action. And like I said, it's striking. It's a smooth bodied individual. They have no teeth.
No teeth and barely functioning wings. They're just like teleporting into people and just like gibbing them.
Excellent. No notes. Their tails also look fucking sick as hell. Yeah. Like, look at 87. Look at that fucking oh shit.
That tail is begging to be a sword. That's like when you take off Seath the Scaleless's tail in Dark Souls, and you're like, free sword.
Mm-hmm. Then we get to the dragon that I thought made me think of you most when I first saw it, the Requiem dragon.
I'm curious why that is. This is also the dragon from the cover. Is that, I think, the Requiem and the Resurrection dragons are on the cover? They're very cool.
Yes. Yeah. Well, just because it's one of the divine dragons, I find the divine dragons to be very interesting conceptually, because we've talked before about like, you know, various ways in which religions are sort of set up inside of a world and such. And so having a dragon that is sort of a particular plane and has this, and sometimes represents the ideals of that plane. So like the Requiem dragon can be thought of as a dragon that cares about, you know, balancing this line between life and death. So that sort of manifested both in their dooming breath, which specifically does shit to undead creatures, and their other main effect they have, which is spare the dying, free the tormented, which stabilizes dying creatures within 200 feet and does 16d6 vitality damage to anyone that takes void healing, which is basically undead and the like.
So in the Planescape cosmology, which we talked about a lot in season 6, you know, there's all these different planes where souls go to, and I had the players talk to a lot of psychopomps, which is like a word for like the beings that take people from life to afterlife or whatever. But psychopomps are not a named thing in Dungeons and Dragons, but they are in Pathfinder. They're actually a much better, like, fleshed out version of some of these concepts. So I mean, it's obviously all this stuff takes from real existing mythology, but yeah, if I was going to go back to Planescape, which, you know, I've talked about before especially when we did the Planescape book, I have ideas for it. Like, this is something that would slot in very easily there, as well as all of the psychopomp stuff from Pathfinder, because they have their own kind of take on it.
And to contrast the Requiem dragon, as you alluded to, the immediate next dragon is a Resurrection dragon, which says such a sick, nasty body design. Like,
yeah, Yeah, this is literally just like the gaping dragon from Dark Souls. It's like rotting and purple, and there's like
Yeah.
ghost faces like visible, and the magic coming off of it.
It's very funny because the first thing I thought about when I saw this was like, this is the life biome.
It's possible, yeah. But yeah,
Just-
these two like black and white dragons, the Requiem and Resurrection, they're on the cover. They contrast great. One has like a very regal, stately appearance, and the other is like body horror shit. So yeah, I mean they're both really great, and they go well together.
Mm-hmm. And the Resurrection Dragon has the soul siphoning breath.
I'm trying to remember where I said this, that I was thinking about doing a vampire dragon this season, but then Dan he was doing season 13 and it has, vampires in it. Obviously, I don't think it's a spoiler. It's like a horror themed season. So I got away from that, but I still wanted to have some sort of similar thing to a vampire dragon. I don't want to say too much, but I think dragon breath that sucks rather than blows is a fun feature. So I'm very much into the soul siphoning breath.
Yeah. I like how the second art just has these like various souls like erupting along the wings and back of the dragon, and then we look at his face, he's just sort of have like a little shit-eating grin, like
It really does, yeah.
Look at me.
That's great.
Like they're having a great time.
Oh my god, the next one is the autism dragon. I forgot.
The rune dragon, yes.
I told Joe because I was reading it, I was like, wow, you wouldn't believe this dragon loves scrolls and hyper focusing, and he can eat the same food every day. I was just waiting to see if I could bait her to say
eating
something.
is often considered an annoyance for rune dragons. Rune dragon go for weeks before remembering to eat. So like, yeah, you're talking about like hyper ADHD, autism, hyper fixation rune dragon. Yeah.
I'm gonna eat only lettuce for 3 months while I memorize every Magic the Gathering card. Yeah, it's great to see yourself reflected in media. Representation is important.
But yeah, like it's fascinating because like obviously this is an arcane dragon, and it kind of plays into this whole idea of like rune scrolls. They just want to have all the stuff going on. I like the fact that the runes on their body glow if relevant magic associated with that rune is happening nearby. So they're kind of like a walking detect magic creature in that respect.
Yeah, a lot of opportunities for traps and stuff because you can just like have runes do any number of different things in their lair. So you can make a very like lateral combat puzzle if you want to.
I also like how one of their alternate abilities is Runic Jail. The rune dragon conjures a prison that promises pain to those within and those who try to escape.
Yep. We got Runic Breath, where I just pictured the Fusro Da from Skyrim, right? You're just like fucking words are coming out, knocking people off the mountain.
It's great if you need to do a bullet hell segment. You have a rune dragon just shooting runic patterns you have to dodge and making sure it doesn't hit your 1 pixel center of your body, obviously.
I also like how it is just like a chunky guy. I appreciate
it. Is so chunky.
The body diversity.
I like how the 1 in 99 is like so chunky. He's really glad for himself.
Yeah, it's a thick boy. In contrast to the next one, the opposite of
thin
thick.
boy. Yeah, the whisper dragon.
Notably for being very like needle-like and collapsible, sharp, pointy. There's a number of these. We talked about the Conspirator Dragon already. You mentioned the Vizier Dragon. This is like a set of dragons which are, I think, all occult. They're all like very sneaky. Yes. And this one specifically like gets more powerful the more secrets it knows. That's very fun. It can steal knowledge.
Yep. In terms of breath, they have the cogitation breath.
Cogitation just means thinking, I think.
yeah, like it makes somebody stupefied because they thought too much. Maybe it's befuddling in that case.
I hate when that happens.
Stupefied basically means you have to make a check to see if you can successfully do something like cast a spell, and also like you said, their communal knowledge ability, where they basically can just get information from all their informants immediately. So like, yeah, they're a Whisperpedia you could have practically inside of a campaign.
Yeah, if we were using these dragons for season 12, this is like something Sycorax would do because she collects like emotions and memories and so
Yep.
forth. That I think would be a very easy switch. I mean, honestly, it's more appropriate than Steel, which is just kind of arbitrary because that's what Laura chose.
Mhm.
But yeah, I like the design. They're very like long and tricksy. It makes you think they're in the air vents listening to your secrets, which I think
Mhm.
is intentional and works.
Yeah, and then once you get past the Whisper Dragon, we're now in like the full bestiary for dragons that show their young two Archdragon forms, and these we can kind of go by a little bit quicker until we find something that we can hyperfixate on. So we got the Barrage Dragon, which is just fucking bunch of cannons all over its body, basically.
Yeah, just 1,000 ranged weapons exploding all the time. I did like the detail that their reproduction is just like they get too full of magic or something. It's like a
Yep.
very, I don't know, very, very unique. I've never seen a dragon that's like constantly on the verge of exploding. It's like a platformer enemy.
Hmm.
It's like very silly.
Very silly, but yes, they also have Iron Sense as one of their abilities when they get to as they get along, which is just fantastic. And it makes sense for what they're doing. You get to the next one. One of my designs I really like. One of the designs I really like is the Bog Dragon. It's great.
We mentioned that also, like the horn dragon, pretty similar to a classic green dragon, although they thought of a couple of interesting wrinkles, like the
Mm.
ability to slime adventurers and then keep them in like suspended conscious animation, so in case they want to hear their stories later, which is a good horror beat. These
Hmm.
guys are pretty spooky. I also like they specifically call out like the shape of the jaw is ideal for like having their most of their body under the water of a bog with just like their head poking out the way alligators do.
Yep, and they can still speak while being submerged like that, which is a great look.
Very
Um,
thoughtful.
Very thoughtful. Another aquatic focused dragon is next, the Brine Dragon.
Yeah, this is like we've been so effusive. I think because like nothing
Mhm.
but positivity so far. If I have to, just for the sake of argument, come up with a negative, I'll say the some of the water dragons are a little disappointing just because of how cool the coral dragon is. You know, like
No,
they
I
came
get
out
it.
so strong. It's like, okay, what else you got for me in the ocean? This guy, I mean, he's big and blue. I'm not against it, but he's ain't got
Sure.
no coral.
Right. Well, and again, it's the difference is that coral dragons are very spot located and regional, whereas like the brine dragon isn't as much, from my recollection. Like
Yeah.
they're not meant to stay on one spot wherever they are, but like you, and again, there are different things you can kind of create for these different dragons. But like you said, the coral dragon is easily like if we were to do like an actual tier list video, like a good, like a smart podcast, you'd have like an S tier, and coral drag would be one of those S tier ones, just immediate. Just take the art, slap it at the top, and say done.
I never even thought of that. I am so bad at content because yeah, obviously that's the best way to get views is ranking every dragon in the new book, and then
Uh-huh.
we do have like a troll pick where we're like, yeah, the bog dragon is S tier, and people are like, no way. Obviously the mocking dragon is S tier. I don't know, just we're trying to
We'll get to the
incite.
mocking dragon in a moment. We got the one that you described earlier, the Imagine a Cat dragon, which is the cloud dragon.
Yep. Silly guy. Like lightning breath, as you would expect from a cloud. Pretty standard,
Mhm.
but yeah, I like the description a lot. That's one of my favorite bits of writing. And there is a little picture of a claw with a butterfly. That's very cute. So you got to have some fucked up body horror ones, and you got to have some silly fun ones.
And they got to have a little bit of mixture of both with the crystal dragon, the exceptionally vain dragons of all of them so far.
Yeah.
Um,
And to once again, season 12, this is obviously Desdemona, the diamond dragon, the extremely vain,
mhm.
shiny dragon. That all fits very
They
together
make
nicely.
they make the point that if one of the crystals get chipped, they will rip it out and wait for it to grow back in before they go back out in public, pretty much, just because
Yeah.
they're that focused on like their fit as it is. I forgot what their breath was for these one here.
Ornamental breath. Exhale a
Mm,
torrent of shattered rocks and minerals, dealing piercing damage. A creature who fails to save is weighed down by the stones, which is interesting because yeah, we were doing diamond dragons, which have ice breath, but in practicality, you are getting like, impaled by giant stones, and
mm,
so it's pretty similar. But
mhm.
I like also because Desdemona is like a cold character. The Breath Weapon also works on that level too. So, well, you can do so much with dragons. You can convey different things with the lair, with the horde, with the breath. You know, that like there's so much room to add detail there. They're very flexible creatures, so it's fun.
And speaking about doing that much, we get to one of my favorites, the Delight Dragon.
Yes, these are the motherfucking Cymbalines.
These are the Cymbaline, and there's so many stupid details about these Delight Dragons. They're such fucks that they're great. To one point of notice, there's a paragraph about their diet where they're supposed to eat well-balanced meals, but Delight Dragons will say, actually, we need to be nosing around in little snacks, you know.
Yeah. They maintain the superiority of nosing around for little snacks. Finding one with a snout in a basket of candies or claw deep in a fruit tart is no surprise. The presence of cookies in particular has been known to do wonders for their mood. I mean, we've literally have y'all fucking using the loom of infinite power to make popcorn, having little weird picnics where you crash monster trucks or whatever the fuck we're doing.
You also have, and this one has 4 different invoked named Delight Dragons, and they're all nasty little fucks in different ways. And like you have Onachauto, the overly curious male Delight Dragon tourist who, while traveling in Katapesh, learned of a local festival and upon his excited arrival caused a stampede of camels that caused much property damage. Onachauto has since apologized, expending an excruciating 7 months completing the requisite 1-page apology form. Just like you said. So it's like, that's the sort of detail you're like, is that like established lore? Did that just happen in some fucking campaign? Along with Nizel's delicacies being basically the Michelin guide of just of the lands. They're just amazing.
Yeah, Delight Dragons are true dragons, so they're stronger than the fairy dragons we're used to, but you could easily swap out a lot of the stuff there. There's a number of abilities that I think are unique. If they're not, that's very funny, but like whimsy sense. Delight Dragons can sense the presence of laughter, games, celebrations, and sweets, which is just, that's basically how we play them already, but seeing it written down is fun.
My favorite ability is like the Samurai Game Changer ability, Let's Play, where the dragon conjures up an arena to play a game, making up rules on the spot. Up to 4 target creatures inside the dragon's aura takes mental damage from the dragon's baffling explanation. And if people who fail to save are confused for 1 round, 1 minute on a critical failure. Just like, it's like one of those things where like having a Delight Dragon that just shows up over and over again during a campaign to just piss off the player characters who can't actually kill it. Very funny.
Yeah, some of these I'm like jealous I didn't think of. The Playscape aura, where all strikes are non-lethal, just like because you're goofing, you're nerfing everything. I should have thought of that. That's funny.
I like how the Archdragon has can't kill fun. Once per day, if the Delight Archdragon would die, it just automatically resurrects at its most recently visited lair with half its maximum hit points. Just, yeah, you can't kill fun. And just like...
Cloud of giggles. Once per day, the Delight Dragon transforms into a huge, sparkling cloud of gas. Come on. We're just having fun with it. Yeah, this is good shit.
Absolutely. The next area is the Dragonets, which are also a player ancestry option. These are the Cymbalines are like Dragonet Delight Dragons, effectively, is what I kind of describe them as. They're little dragons that are tiny, but they're just really hedonistic and otherwise. But the Dragonets they only get 2 pages because they're kind of more of a template than they are like full spread executor executor dragon, not executor, but or is it?
The Pokemon Executor. I will say about Dragonets briefly. Are there Dragonborn or an equivalent in Pathfinder already?
So the closest thing to that would be, I believe, taking the Dragon Blood's versatile heritage. I believe that's how that works. Let me double check with Ancestries real quick while I'm at it.
Okay, because it definitely makes sense to have a draconic player race, and I just wasn't sure if they already had one or if Dragonets fills that niche. I should know that, but
So for example, like you have kobolds already, like those were already existent, and this just kind of gives them that whole thing there. But like I believe a dragonborn is a result of what's called a versatile heritage, which can be slapped on top of another ancestry. So basically, like for you can make someone have the Dampier versatile heritage so that they have like a vampire thing. But there is a thing called a dragon blood heritage. And I believe the way that works is that it's meant to allow any ancestry to have a dragonborn sort of equivalent. And what they have later on in the player options is extra feats for dragon blood characters is what it is.
yeah, I was gonna say because they added new dragons, there's new feats associated with those types of dragons.
Correct. Like you can have an aqueous dragonborn now, and the whole point there is that when you make a new character and you say, I want to be a, let's say, a human dragon blood, you could say for my ancestry feat, I'm going to pick up aqueous dragon blood, and that gives me those sort of features, right?
So yeah, lots of interesting stuff here. Right? We could talk more about dragonets. I think it's a very funny idea. Well, maybe we'll do it at the end if we have time. Executor dragon. They hold an egg in their mouth. What's up with this fucking guy?
I don't know. Like it's fascinating. All I know is that if they crack the egg, it unleashes its divine wrath, which is very clearly a divine code. I like how the alternate art is not just a dragon. It's not a dragon. It's just a little like tower being blown the fuck up.
Yeah, this is interesting. I feel like there maybe was a reference I'm missing or something. Like this is like, oh, you don't know this type of dragon story or something. But as far as the divine one goes, it's hard to top the Halo guy.
I like how the Executor Dragon, Executor Dragon has a commentary about its community's thoughts on atheism. It is, the community is largely split on the subject of atheism. Many of them feel it is inherently foolish to be an atheist in a world where the gods make themselves known, but many posit that as long as the atheist is kind of good-hearted, they care not where one's faith may or may not lie.
Yeah, I've seen that conversation a lot in D&D, so it's definitely something that can be played with. But this dragon, I think most notable feature is they are furry. They're a fuzzy guy.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's one of the things where I think they do a good job kind of incorporating different dragon mythologies from around the world in their dragon designs here.
Yeah.
So, and that's sort of what WotC was trying to do with their rework of the dragons in the most recent materials. And so, sure, good. It's interesting how a lot of these will kind of vary in terms of their relationship and how much they care about normies and how they relate to things. So again, for me, just like the side commentary about atheism with these dragons is very funny. Now, in terms of a dragon with an interesting body type, you have the forest dragon, which...
Yeah, this is what a lung dragon or like it's a Chinese dragon essentially, but it's covered in plant. Like this is a grass dragon type Pokemon, basically.
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely. And you can almost consider it like another type of green dragon, right? Almost a different flavor of it there. I find it fascinating how it even indicates how it has fed by water as a thing in its stat block there. And this is listed as an imperial dragon with an eye, because this is one of those dragons that appears in the Tiansha continent, right? And that shouldn't be too surprising from that perspective, from what they're designed as. But this is kind of meant to show that the Codex is kind of comprehensive for all dragons in Golarion, right?
There's a couple of little details that are hidden in the format that you might not notice if you're looking for the big splashy abilities. One I noticed is that it has the tag for wood, which in the Chinese elements is wood and metal in addition to the classic fire, water, earth, and air. So that's interesting to me. I'm curious how many Pathfinder abilities key off of wood as an adjective. Also notice it has a language Muon. Is that their Chinese?
It's unfortunately it doesn't have much information. It says the interlobe below speakers of Muon, so it just has indicators of people, but looks like Muon is a language that is done by nature. It's the wood elemental language, it looks like, or it might be it might be their parallel of, because I'm seeing like water types in there. It might be a parallel of like the elemental languages.
Yeah, like
that are
Aquan
found.
and Ignan and so forth. Okay,
Exactly.
well,
Like, for example, like you might notice that they also speak Fey. Fey is the replacement for Sylvan is like, there's some of the languages that are kind of more tied around D&D sort of races and stuff. So another example of this is the Ancient Forest Dragon has Nagaji, which is kind of like the Yuan Ti of Pathfinder in that respect. So,
well, I look like a fool for assuming, but it's a fun detail. It looks like they're doing more stuff with the elements
well,
here.
I am probably wrong too. Somebody will correct us. Is next up we got like the fiery brother of the bog dragon, the magma dragon.
Yeah, so there's like 3 or 4 dragons that shoot fire, and I was hoping for them to be a little bit more distinct. Oh, I just wanted to say one more thing about the forest dragon is it did have a good breath weapon, cloud of stinging insects. So
oh yeah, of course.
It's a fucked up thing to be breathing on people, but magma dragon is another fiery fella. Anything that stuck out to you here? This is another one. If I have to find a criticism, it's like there are a number of red dragons that breathe fire, and they could have a little bit more differentiation.
But to contrast, the cinder dragon and magma dragons are just different flavors of like that sort of primal element at play. So like they are both fire based, but they are different because, let me double check the languages they speak real quick to make sure. They both speak Pyrrhic, which is, I believe, like the fire language there.
And Petrin, which is earth, presumably. Petra means stone.
I would assume so. When you look at this, though, it's indicated how like magma are definitely volcano coded, right? They burrow in magma. They have volcanic purge, where it's with their pyroclastic breath, which is a very fun one because it is magma, so it's fire and bludgeoning in that respect there. I also just love the fact they have the little picture of one just kind of chilling in some magma, just sticking its head up, being like, "Hey, buddy, yeah."
It's like a capybara in a hot spring.
Now we get to one of the showstoppers, the Mocking Dragon.
This is the motherfucking Joker. Look at this guy.
Yes. So my understanding is that the lore for like copper dragons or the like had them being kind of like being very focused on like shape shifting and stuff like that and being little tricksters. And so I think this is the replacement for copper dragons as an example of like how wild these are by comparison.
Yeah, they're cranking up the silliness dial. They have a reaction called Jeer at Failure. If opponent critically fails on a strike, the Mocking Dragon laughs dismissively at the foe, attempting an intimidation check to demoralize the creature. That's incredible. I wish I could do that to Quinn
Also,
now.
no, it also triggers if a target becomes prone. So if you slip
if
on
you
a
fall
banana
or you
peel,
fuck
that
up,
also... Yeah. Yep. So like you got also incessant heckling. So I could just imagine the meme of like something like, "Is that a mocking dragon?" And then just be, "Is that a mocking dragon? Is that a mocking dragon?" And then you get demoralized immediately. I also love
2 different breath weapons, laughing gas and slippery puddle. Well, I understand laughing gas. That's, classic. Why use a glob of viscous goo on a solid surface? That's gross.
Because it makes people fall prone, so they can laugh at them. That's
of course.
They're little comedians. I also like the fact how they don't do long-term schemes unless it's for political farce. The fact that
they'll satirize your ass.
They will plot for decades just to throw a pie your face during your inauguration because you slighted them decades ago at a game of cards.
Yeah. I when I first saw them and how silly they were, I thought maybe this was the most Cymbeline coded until I saw the Delight Dragon. Obviously, Delight is closer, but now I wish I had something with more of the Mocking Dragon spirit, because this is a good vibe, I think. Just really making the like, it's kind of like Chorus. They drive the players insane.
You could have a buddy duo of a Mocking and Delight Dragon, and I think they could probably have some fun in that case.
Yeah, it's very good.
Yeah, funnily enough, the Delight Dragon are divine. So it's funny them playing a cleric Cymbeline. There we go.
Comedy is one of the highest callings. That makes sense to me.
Speak about comedy. Let's go with this next chuckle fuck, the Oath Dragon. Nothing serious about the Oath Dragon here.
Yeah, this seems to be built around this specific thing, the binding oath, where you forge a dragon bond. And there's actually some stuff about this at the end. It might be like the last part of the book, honestly,
Mhm.
about forming bonds with dragons. And I have Yoko Taro brain, but I immediately was like, this
Oh
is
yeah,
Drakengard.
Drakengard, absolutely.
They're 100% doing Drakengard. The art at the end of the book looks like the cover of Drakengard 1.
I also like how they have the flavor of these red scales that show all the oaths taken, and they turn black when those oaths are broken. I mean, that's just very cool visual aesthetic there. It's very easy to understand, but very striking.
Yeah. So, castigating breath, the dragon unleashes a pronouncement that deals spirit damage. That's interesting. There's a couple of different ones where it's like the dragon talks shit and it hurts you, but this one, the specific castigating as a description is interesting. You'd have to be more creative to make it effective. I think you have to actually hurt the hurt the character's feelings, which is fun.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Sure.
I want to say when we get to the end of the book and then we do the actual oath stuff as a mechanic. If you haven't seen the cover of Drakengard, you should take a look at that. I feel like the art is a direct reference, and also it mentions that you can get like one of the characters gave up their voice to bond with the dragon, which is the plot of Drakengard. So.
For one of the more mundane dragons, I'd say is the Rime Dragon. It's just an ice dragon, but they have snow vision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the ones that's pretty simple, but if you're doing a snow campaign, you want an ice dragon, like it's got to be there. So
also, they all can't be mythic rares. There got to be some commons in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean the Rime Dragon's actually really good and limited. Yeah. So
it has sense. Blizzard breath.
If you get a Alolan Ninetales out there, you actually can't miss with Blizzard, so it's good.
Exactly. In terms to just kind of gloss past them, we have the Sage Dragons, which are another one of those like, what the fuck is going on here design wise? It's great.
Yeah. I think this was the one actually someone in Discord was like, what was Sage Dragon culture like before like the invention of books or like before the printing press? Like it doesn't really make that much sense because they are nerd dragons.
Yep. Well, I think didn't Dan posit that at one point there?
Okay. That makes sense. That's something Dan would say. They have an ability called Reveal Shame.
Yeah.
It's just incredible.
Yep, you have that going on. It's like Sanguine Knowledge. The first time each encounter a dragon hits and deals damage to a creature with their jaw strike, they receive information about that creature as if they had succeeded at a recall knowledge check. Fantastic. Overwhelming proclamation, reflexive understanding, like definitely book nerds. And of course, they're occult because it's one of those things that like knowledge is very associated with the occult tradition, which is also why like bards are occult casters rather than like arcane casters as they are in like D&D.
Yeah, that's a word that I feel like people can just use to mean spooky or something, but it's like hidden. Yeah. It's like hidden knowledge. But
that's sort of the thing there. They do invoke the Eldritch in here because they literally have in the young Sage Dragon the Eldritch interference ability. But like it sort of plays into the fact that knowledge acquisition is more tuned to the occult because, like you said, you're finding forbidden or lost knowledge rather than just knowing more stuff in that case.
Yeah, but so if you're doing a campaign and you got to find some like old dusty tome with secrets of the universe, you got to either see one of these Sage Dragons or one of the Rune Dragons, and then you could, or maybe both, and they have a rivalry or something. They're like the scroll fucking guys, and Rune Dragons are more obsessed with their own shit, and
the scroll
Sage
fuck boys. Yep,
Sage Dragons are out here revealing your shame, which come on, man. The dragon utters an embarrassing secret about the creature, unnerving them and their allies. That's fucked up. That if you fail, the creature is frightened.
Listen, man. No, listen, you didn't have to make me talk about that time your fly was down during the party the entire time, and no one corrected you on it until you noticed it on the way home because your dick was out the whole time too. On
a critical failure, you are confused and frightened both. It's just so scary. You don't know what's going on. Oh, God. Next one's Sea Dragon. I think this is another Imperial because it's, the long boys, the Chinese style ones.
The sea and followed by the Sky Dragon are both like Tianxia coded fairly well. And like, again, they are fairly straightforward. I like how the sea dragon has the black water breath, which does bludgeoning damage because it's just like that aggressive in terms of just water. It's not like anything else. And what's the difference here is that the sea dragon is an arcane dragon and the sky dragon is a divine one in this case.
Yeah. These are pretty standard, which is fine. Not all of them need to be fucking weird. I appreciate that.
And then another Tiansha like related one is the Sovereign Dragon, which has like the really cool armor along its entire body, which is, pretty heckin' cool looking.
I think you might have said earlier that this was like the kind of the way that the gold dragon is now, where it's like a long armored.
Yeah. In D&D, right. And like the sovereign dragon, again, it's interesting. Like, what type of breath does a sovereign dragon have? Well, shoot, I forgot.
Sovereign's Rebuke, is that the dragon unleashes a roar charged with psychic energy?
Yeah. And like, yeah, it's not even called a breath, which is fine. But like, it does indicate how there's still something about the dragon having this sort of expressive thing. I like the hat that is shown on page 168.
Yeah, that feels like something from like the Imperial Chinese court. It's interesting that like breath isn't like a separate mechanic. It's not like it doesn't. There's not anything that's like when you use a breath weapon. So yeah, they can just get weird with it. I'm curious when they decide something is breath like or not. But the main thing is that they can't be used. You got the 1d4 rounds in between. Yep. That's how you know it's breath type, I guess. And
pretty much
D&D, you can you roll to recharge, which is very similar, but there's like more suspense that could be from turn to turn rather than rolling all at once and then knowing.
Right, for sure.
Does that make sense? I just say shit on the show sometimes.
No. Like
was that fucking confusing?
It's one of those things, and like that 1d4 rounds, that might be a hidden roll, so you don't know how many rounds it is, other than it's sometime within the next 4 rounds, right?
Yeah,
kind of territory.
I definitely like to let everyone know. Like I'm fully within my rights as the DM to do more hidden stuff, but I've always found it just makes the drama higher. When I get dunked on.
there are some situations in Pathfinder where the standard thing is for rolls to be hidden or at least GM only. Now, of course, every table operates differently on that front. The next one was one that I did not anticipate the color of them based on the sketch of them earlier in the book, but the Storm Crown Dragon. Another like primal one that's just all about electricity,
Yep. It's pretty similar, with the electric abilities to like the Cloud Dragon, but it's got its own stuff going on. It's very like Tesla coil.
Right, the galvanic barrage is their breath, which is very fun to just read. They also have the superconductor reaction. So like it is very fun how it's like regardless of range, if you're targeting them with an attack, they can just hit you with a storm bolt just from range.
Yep. Next up, Time Dragon, which is a thing in D&D. We talked, I think it was the Planescape book, where there's a whole quest where you meet a Time Dragon who's Benjamin Buttoning backwards, which I thought was really fun. We've mentioned them this season on Dice Funk. So, I mean, no one owns the concept of a Time Dragon. It's interesting that they're not a Chrono Dragon or like something else, because they're just the same words, but deeply purple guys. Very purple.
Very purple. Love them. Love the look of them. Very fun. They also have their time shift breath, which is if you suck it, if you critical fail at it, you get shifted forward in time, vanishing, reappearing the beginning of the time dragon's next turn at the same location on where the time has passed. So basically, you just lose your turn. Get time walked,
Yeah, no, that's good because for normal failures you get slowed, which is not great, but completely getting blasted and getting displaced in time is very fun. They also have an illusion ability, temporal eddies, which also does some time stuff. I was curious because time magic is so powerful. Like theoretically, I was like, is this going to be the strongest dragon? But it's it seems like roughly in line with the others.
Yep. So what happens is interesting is that slowed means you lose those actions on your turn. So if you're slowed 2, that means instead of taking 3 actions on your turn, you can only take 1. So that can be very devastating because for a lot of spellcasters, their spells take 2 actions to cast. So if you're slow to 2, you're basically having a dead turn anyway for a caster or for your bigger abilities.
I also like that the time dragon can explicitly survive in the vacuum of space in case that's going to come up.
Yep. That totally makes sense though, right? You would expect them to.
Yeah, sure. I don't wonder how often that comes up. Are you going to space a lot in Pathfinder?
Just well, not yet, but there are planes that do weird things, so it might happen. I like how the other thing I was gonna say about the time dragon is the patterning on their wings look like constellations practically, which is just also very nice, like swirling of stars and stuff like that, which is very fun. And I believe the other thing I found very fun is, their second chance reaction where they can just, it basically is just sort of a automatic nope or a reverse hero point is what it is basically.
Yeah. The dragon slows time to evade, gaining concealment against the triggering attack. That one. They go into bullet time. They have bullet time.
Yeah. That's wild stuff there. So, let's see here. Umbral dragons are next. And
umbral means shadow. Shadow dragons are, of course, a thing in D&D, so it's a pretty clean 1-to-1 here. These are also very purple, but very slim and having an almost like a muscle tissue-like texture to their body.
Yeah, and very much occult because, again, they're so spindly and weird. They can pin shadows, which is kind of wild. It's like Peter Pan going sicko mode on you here. The tenebrous breath.
Yeah, I wonder why some of them have 2 breaths, or like if they have 2 good ideas and couldn't decide. So one makes you enfeebled and one does void damage, which is there's different applications of those. But I'm wondering, like if they had more breath ideas than they had dragons, or what was going on there.
Well, the one thing that's really important here is that if you what's interesting here is that they already have a contingency in here, because if it just did void damage, then undead would get healing from it, because they do get what's called void healing. But in this situation, they even specify the undead take force damage instead. I think the big idea here for the adult version that has the 2 flavors of it, I think is to kind of tap on void and shadow as 2 different concepts related to it, perhaps. Or it might be the case that they just wanted the young one to only have the damage option and not have the enfeebling option, which is probably more threatening to put someone into.
But yeah, we just introduced the Shadow Dragon in Season 12. We're going to see more of them. They have the iconic boyfriend blast that everyone likes. So I'm thinking about Shadow Dragon breaths all the time. Good stuff. Pinning Shadow, like you said, that's some good stuff. All this is fun.
We then have another, fairly basic but pretty solid design for the Underworld Dragon. He just looks kind of fucking cool with his...
Yeah, it's like the Lung Dragon, but the first illustration is him standing in his hind legs, which you don't see very much. It gives him like like he has like a little torso, like a little butt, situation. That's hard to explain. But usually they're in flight majestically, and they don't try to let stand on those little feet.
I also like how if you hit it with something made out of wood or plant, it gets stoked by it because it's fed by wood.
Yeah, that is interesting. So we've had this conversation a million times, especially with Laura, who I think is Pokemon brained and has always tried to find like monsters' weaknesses and stuff. And I'm just like, there's just not much of that in the game, unfortunately. But this one, countered by water and fed by wood. So it's curious to me that this is more of a mechanic in Pathfinder.
Yep, and it kind of plays into, like you said, like the sort of the Chinese element, right? With that, which includes wood and metal as certain elements, and so it plays into that. You have the exploding red breath, so you got this another fire type, but it's a different flavor because it comes from a different part of the world, effectively in that case.
And then one we mentioned very early, we're getting all the way down 2 hours later, the Vizier Dragon. This is another one like the Conspirator or the Whisper Dragon that is like socially focused, right? Because it's like trying to get into positions of power and trying to machinate, which is I'm glad they have different flavors, because if it was like, oh, I want to do a social campaign with the dragon, well, I guess I have to do a conspirator dragon. There's only
Right.
one option, so
Right, exactly. And also, you have a number of dragons who can show up in human forms and stuff like that, which is nothing new. Bahamut does that as well in D&D, but they do a good job of showing off a different bunch of different versions. And for the dragons that tend to be more personable and possibly able to be interacted in society, they tend to have more representative NPCs. There's 3 of them for the Vizier, as an example. And they have their powerful utterance as their breath adjacent thing, which has 2 different flavors: occult fire and mental occult.
So those are 2 breath weapons in a more traditional sense. I do like that they also have word of advice and word of caution as 2 different abilities. I literally have an NPC, it's a genie this season, who is constantly whispering in Hop's ears and saying like, "Good, my liege." Excellent choice. And that's exactly what I'd be doing. Like if we were transposing these types, this would be a Vizier dragon constantly giving Hop contradictory, annoying advice.
On the realm of like, this is a dragon that some kid wrote up at a table one time and people were like, "This is fucking sick, kid," was the Vorpal dragon, which
Yeah. That's so funny. The word Vorpal, as far as I'm aware, is made up by the Alice of Wonderland guy, but basically is used to mean sharp now. And this is a sword dragon. Its arms are swords, its tail is a sword, its chin is a sword.
Yep.
Fucking stupid, and I love it. Incredible.
You also got to love the fact that the representatives given are all a gender. They say they're all a gender. They have 2 of them. One is called Autumn Whip-Winged Glaive, a genteel one, and another one is Striking Silver Longsword. So the fact that their name is just whatever weapons they're kind of built from or they kind of derive from, very silly, but also very frightening, because the Vorpal dragons obviously are good at decapitating people. However, as Carolyn noticed in the chat, they can decapitate somebody so well that the head continues to live. Is that clean of a cut?
Definitely how biology works in Galarian. I do like that it was Carolyn who pointed it out. Number 1 Solitaire fan, and I think the Vorpal dragons are very Solitaire coded in that they are naming themselves after like a specific. It's not like Sarah and John. It's just like sharpness, cool sword, like all that kind of stuff. It's
fucking sick ass katana. It's like what's your name?
Yeah.
Fucking sick ass katana. I mean. Yeah.
I am Masamune Excalibur. Wonderful to meet you. On guard.
They don't have a breath affected. Well, they do have a breath. It's Feast of Blood. But like, that's not what you come to the party for. You come for their unturning heads to decapitate foes in rapid succession. And then, if you need to have a ballad sung about it, you go to the Wailing Dragons, which...
The How to Train Your Dragon series, God, we said the word dragon so many times, is very popular in films and in books or whatever. I'm pretty certain this is exactly one of the guys from there, but I can't remember what it's called. Do you know what I'm saying? He's got like a dewlap.
No, I don't, because I have not seen anything related to How to Train Your Dragon. So yeah,
never mind. I'm a fool. Resounding Roar. These guys are like the Pokemon X-Plowed, where it's always screaming at people. I don't know why I can't not compare things, but you know what I mean. These are screaming guys.
One dragon, that the last dragon we get to before the Worm Wraith and the closing bits of this book here, is the Wish Dragon. And the Wish Dragon has got to have one of the most insidious breath weapons in this entire damn book.
Yeah, tell us about this, because this is also coming up. Like I said, this season's all about dragons, but there's also a genie, and now one of the player characters is a genie dragon. So I've been thinking about Wish a lot, and it's cruel possibilities.
So the Wish Dragon, the focal point, is, like aspirations, hopes, and stuff like that, best wishes and such. Their breath weapon is called Breath of Loss. The dragon breathes a warm, gentle breeze of mist that creates the feeling of when deepest desires are achieved. As the breeze dissipates, the feeling of loss overwhelms the creature's senses, dealing mental damage in a 30-foot cone with a will save. A creature that critically fails its save is also consumed with the memory of moment and is stunned one. They lose their turn, I believe. And so like it's just like you are presented. It's like the breath washes over you. You see a figure. It is your father, and they say, you know what? I'm actually proud of you. And as you go in for the hug, you hug nothing but air around you as you realize that was a lie. I made it up and told that to you just now. It's your problem now.
And you die. You die from your dad not being proud of you. Someone breathed your dad not being proud of you on you, and he killed you. It's
That's
fucked
right.
up.
Very fucked up. And then the last dragon in the bestiary is the Worm Wraith, which is sort of like, again, it's not one of the other dragons, but it's related to Dahak's kind of related stuff there.
Yeah, this is like a lich, a Draco lich kind of thing
exactly.
going on.
That definitely plays well with that. So once you get past, now we're on page 204. We're finally into the player options section, and we can kind of go through this a little quickly.
Yeah, we can go pretty quickly. I will say there with the Draco Wraith, which is blasting purple smoke up in the air. Joa put the book on an iPad for me to read on, and when she saw that picture, she did I don't know what the program is called. I guess it might just be whatever Adobe Reader is. She did draw a big heart on it, so it is Joa approved.
I'm not surprised. I also like how it has vitality transfer. It has decaying breath, obviously. It has some soul consumption shit, totally in line with like a dragon that's more concerned about destruction than anything else.
But yeah.
Yeah,
and because in Pathfinder there are the primal dragons, we don't need the catastrophic dragons from Forgotten Realms. So, for the record, Hop would have instead been turned into a wish dragon to get to her current state. And now we will talk about the player options. I will say there's a great chart in here of all the dragons and their tradition, speed, dragon breath, and the saving throw associated. Love this chart. I was looking for something similar for all the dragon types in D&D, and it was hard to find.
And this is related to the fact that, like, when it comes to making a draconic sorcerer, the draconic sorcerer is a common trope in many things. When they made the newer version of the draconic sorcerer in Pathfinder 2nd edition remaster, they had to get rid of the original dragon types that they had. So if you go for the draconic bloodline now, let me go and pull that up because I have it available here. By default, you choose just a generic arcane, divine, occult, or primal as your like basic sort of foundation. But this just gives you other options to do instead. So if you want to be like a primal sorcerer, so you're casting nature spells, you could pick a coral dragon as your bloodline. And so now you get that type of tradition and what comes with it. So it allows for a lot of customization within just one of the bloodlines for the sorcerers. It's also neat because sorcerers are one of those spellcasters where you can choose what your spell list is.
Yeah, so we talked about the dragonettes, which are like small dragons, and the kobolds, which are like the goblins, dragon goblins, like little guys. I've discussed previously that originally the idea for season 12 was there'd be two parties, one of level 20 dragons and one of level 1 minions, and we'd be swapping between them. Instead, we did the current situation where the dragons are shapeshifting. But if we ever revisit that idea, which I think we can now because we have all these new dragons, like I wouldn't do it if I was just doing metallic and chromatic again. But I think with all these cool dragons, it has a chance, and I would love a party of minions. Like one is a dragonette, one is a kobold, one is a bloodline sorcerer, and maybe a fourth thing. I think that would be super sick.
Very, very fun. What I like about the dragonettes is one, they have some amazing art. They have the Fey dragonette, which is like a witch. You can tell because they have a broom and their little familiar frog there. I like how they put in little one of the things I like about how the ancestries are set up, they have the whole you might, others probably thing there to kind of explain what the stereotypes are, kind of in a simplified form. You have your edicts and anathemas that are kind of related to each ancestry, so you can kind of embrace that if you want. And then, of course, you have the different heritages. So a dragonette can be a Fae, a homing drake, a house drake, a pearl dragonet, just a big round boy, a
Yeah,
tide pool
the fucking Pearl
dragonet.
Dragonet is so good. It's like a dapper little gentleman, but it's also like so profoundly round.
That is it.
It's
That I
incredible.
could tell you what class that is. That is an investigator. Um, uh, and then we have a homing drake bard over there. One of my favorite ancestry feats, which is another great thing about Pathfinder, is that every ancestry gets feats that you pick as you level up. So it gives you a little bit more customization. So you could pick up a breath weapon, a dragonet breath, or you could pick up Mighty Dragonet, which makes you've grown especially large and now tower over your fallow dragonets. Instead of tiny, your size is small.
So there's all these feats associated with these different things. There's the Drake Rider. So if you want to play a character who's like riding around a little dragon, they also let you ride dragonets, which is preposterous.
Well, so like that gets into what archetypes are, which is a thing in Pathfinder Second Edition. The Draconic Acolyte and the Drake Rider are archetypes. So basically,
It's like a subclass.
It's like a subclass or multi-class. So effectively, every even level you get a class feat. Starting at level 2 or 4, depending on whatever feat number it says, you could instead pick up a dedication feat. So, for example, you could be a fighter or a ranger, and then at one level, instead of taking a fighter or ranger feat, you pick up Drake Rider dedication, and now you get access to all these other feats along your class feats at the same time.
Yeah, so if we ever did that other dragon campaign, it would be like a decade from now. But like this book, I would be like, someone do the dragon riders, someone do the blood, someone do it's like this would be our like holy bible. This is like a blueprint.
To explain the other features in this section, after the Dragonet, we have the Draconic Kobolds. This refers to the dragon-scaled kobold heritage, basically kobolds that embrace their dragon heritage effectively more aggressively, and it just gives you a couple more ancestry feat options for that, including a kobold breath that you can have.
I like this swagged out kobold with like 1,000 little gold things all over him.
Clearly a
cool.
fortune dragon kobold, basically, you know what I mean? And then,
yeah, absolutely.
And then on the next section, we have the Dragon Blood Heritage feats. And again, these are extra feats you have available to you if you make a Dragon Blood Versatile Heritage character. And the Versatile Heritages are neat because, again, they can be stapled onto almost any ancestry within, like, explainable reasons. So you could have, like, a Leshy Dragon Blood that's tied to, like, a Forest Dragon or something, right?
Yeah.
Totally possible. And then this gives you some of those other little options. And then we get to the different archetypes. The Draconic Acolyte, which basically allows you to have like this draconic gift, and it allows you. It basically like the dragon source. I forget what it's called. Fuck. I'm gonna find it here. It's like the Red Dragon Sorcerer or whatever it is. Oh, the Dragon Disciple. This is the Dragon Disciple replacement. Here is the Draconic Acolyte. There. I also like how they have a feat for a hidden horde. Very funny. You actually can have your own horde, as all things are. Then, like you said, the Drake Rider archetype, which has your different types of riders. You have the riding dragonet and stuff like that in there. And lots of little fun. So what a lot of tables will do, especially once you have players who have a little bit of experience, is they'll do an alternate rule called free archetype, which basically means that you get an extra class feat on even levels, but they are specifically for archetype acquisition. So the reason why this doesn't completely break the game is that picking up archetypes usually doesn't make you grow more vertical in power. It's more horizontal in versatility. So...
yeah, I wish I was better versed in the balance of this because I think this could be an interesting discussion. Unfortunately, I'm just not versed enough in Pathfinder. I probably should be, though, because I want to use some of these ideas. So.
Yeah, I mean, like, my for example, my character I've been playing is an investigator. That's their class. You can't take levels in any other class. You are an investigator from 1 to 20 in that case there. So when I pick up an archetype, I pick up Gunslinger, and now allows me to do my devise a stratagem attacks with guns. And that leads me to some fun things that makes me more effective in combat. My favorite consequence of that, just to give you an idea about why I like how Pathfinder reads, is one of the gunslinger's abilities is this feat they can take to say, hey, here's an activity you can do. Risky reload. As one action, load your gun, shoot it, but if you miss, your gun misfires. Well, in my situation, I use my devise a stratagem, so I always know when I'm going to hit. So when I use risky reload, it's never a risk. And that's totally within the rules and is a pretty understood way to have those things interact. But yeah, the last thing we have in the book here, I think before we get into, the spells and packs here, we got the magic items, including the pig and the anti-dragon barding.
Yeah, barding is like it's armor for animals. Basically, have you ever seen like a chihuahua, which has like anti-hawk barding? Basically,
yeah.
It's sad that it's necessary, but it is very funny, and it's very the picture of the pig with the glowing blue spikes on it is very funny. I think you said that to me as well. I was like, hell yeah.
that pig is smiling because he knows he's not going to be grabbed by a dragon anytime soon, or so he thinks.
Yeah.
We then get to the dragon spells on the next. Oh, actually, other items we have Dragon's Pearl, Dragon's Tongue, Dragon's Wingsuit, Dragonaut's Wingsuit, rather, and then Draconic Spell Catalyst, the Dragon's Eye, and the Dragon's Scoot.
Yeah, Scoot is a shield. I will say I'm not 100% sure how these spells are balanced. I assume it's hard to keep making spells that are like useful in new ways that don't break the game. The one that you sent me a picture of before I read the book is called Earth in the Sky.
Yep.
You fly directly upward, up to 100 feet in the air, and you bring all nearby creatures with you.
Yep.
You fall as if under the effects of gentle landing, but they don't. So this seems to be a normal person to leader.
It is, but there's a couple of things about it here, right? Like, for one, it is a level, it's a rank 6 spell. So that means we're talking about characters that are level 11 or higher. So
you could delete a peasant regardless.
Right. So like this is already a fairly high level spell. It's good for sure, but it's hard for a spell to be like, oh, this is like, oh, we need to ban this spell from competitive play. You know what I mean? Like you also have like,
because at high levels of play, everyone can fly. You know, like demons and devils and all angels, they all have wings and stuff. But yeah, I just saw that and I was like, well, if anybody annoys you, you can send them to hell. Just immediately.
You'll also notice above it the Dragon Turret, which is a 3-action activity, and it's a rank 10 spell. So it requires some special like class or feat acquisition to get, and it has all traditions associated with it because it does something different for each tradition in that respect. So yeah, like pretty wild spells. And you know, it's not too many, but you know, worst case, and I think one other thing to consider when it comes to Earth and Sky is it's an arcane or a primal tradition spell. So if you're an occult caster or a divine caster, you do not have access to that spell without doing some other work to pull it off, right? So another consideration to have about how does it get balanced. Part of it is by what traditions are allowed to access it.
And then the dragon packs, as I said earlier, including the Pact of the Herald and Host. Mm-hmm. You have exchanged your voice for the authority and breath of your bound dragon. And then there's a picture of that. I really liked this. I'm a huge fan of this Drakengard. Mm-hmm. Do you see what I mean? Am I insane?
No. I think you're definitely right on. And what I like about these different oaths and pacts and stuff like that is, again, this is something that is like a special thing you kind of hand out, and you can tell what power level these are by the item levels, right? So this is an item 6, so a level 6 character might get something like this in a campaign, whereas if you wanted the Timeless Bond, that's a level item 12. That's a much more powerful item in that respect as a contract.
It just occurred to me that this is kind of what Laura is doing with her girlfriends now, where she's acquiring a collection of lovers who give her abilities. They're kind of like packs, so that's funny. We could definitely do something with that.
Yeah, and again, it plays into if you're doing another dragon season, then having a character, maybe a sorcerer who has a pact with a dragon, right, or something. You can even imagine a Drake rider who has a pact with the dragon they work with, right? Those can also be kind of fun things they deal with in there. But then once you get past that, it's just the glossary and the credits.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious from our discussion that we really enjoyed this book. I don't want to speak for you, but I think it is my favorite book we've reviewed for the show. It has ignited my interest in Golarion as a setting, Pathfinder as a product, and in doing another Dragon season someday.
Yeah.
So,
I think what I like about it is, again, it's some people. I remember that when the previews were being shown, the mocking dragons were shown off, and there was definitely a mixture of responses in the comment threads and Reddit and stuff like that. And sort of my general attitude towards this is like, this was an opportunity for Paizo to do something different with the same sort of tool set that had existed. And like with other things, the choices they've made have been things to help create a deeper connection with the setting and the rules. And if you want to read about these things, you can read pretty much all of the stat blocks and stuff and the basic write-ups about these things for free on Archives of Nethys, which is something that's kind of helpful because you want to do a little bit of a dive into some of the basic lore and stuff. It's just available for free for you. Like you know me in terms of my difficulty sometimes with parsing and retaining lore. I've been definitely diving more into it because I'm playing an automaton, and an automaton is like a certain type of construct, and they are the last remnants of a civilization that went extinct 6,000 years ago in the canon. So that creates some extra things that makes me think about the character in the world. And I think that's kind of the goal that they have at Paizo, is to make people care about the world, because it makes you care about your characters and the adventures and the stories a lot more. And it's very confident. That's one thing I would like to say about this book. It's very confident about what it's doing, as opposed to almost seeming apologetic about what it's doing.
Yeah, that would not have been a good look. But I was like, we're sorry about all the other dragons. Do you like these ones? So we'll change it if you want. But also, it really dovetails well with the Dice Funk universe we've built. Like I said, there's a current plot where they're creating like these nano machines that turn people into dragons. So I think when we revisit some of this stuff, the direct consequences that there will be coral dragons and mocking dragons now. And that's just like, hey, that was worth $30 to me. Thank you very much. I see we are over 2 hours. I didn't know how much this is going to be. We were very thorough. I think this might be the main episode this week on Sunday, because we're in the birthday vortex.
Yep.
You had your birthday. Quinn has birthday. I have birthday. My dog has birthday. And then, of course, it's Christmas. So I don't know I'm going to be able to edit this in a timely fashion and the episode. So we'll see. But just if you're seeing this on Sunday and you're like, where's the other episode? This is the episode. I think. So.
Well, I need to make sure that my DaVinci template for our reviews stuff here is available. But yeah, I'm certainly prepared for it. And like I said, we scratched the surface on a lot of stuff that went on in here, and that's partially out of respect for Paizo and the people that wrote the book, kind of like any other authors for anything that we've gone over, but also just because we just wouldn't have the fucking time. It's 40 dragons types plus the gods plus the other stuff. And I guess the biggest praise I can give is that despite it not being majority player content, it was a fun read for me too. So and for me, I'm happy that you enjoyed it as much as you did, because it speaks well to the quality of the writing,
Yeah, I want to do more of these reviews. This one was just too perfect because we're in the middle of Dragon season, and the images I was seeing were just so intriguing that I had to. So, and also just this is the birthday nexus is the ideal time for this kind of break. We're actually on an interesting cliffhanger where they just casted Meteor Swarm on a boss. So when we come back, that's just it's fight time. So there's not going to be, you can enjoy your Christmas vacation. It all worked out. Thank you very much. I'm excited about everything. We will do more Spewpunk, the bonus show, you and I, soon.
Yep.
So if you're not subscribed, patreon.com/Austin Yorsky, you get to hear us talk about Dr. Doom. And,
Dr. Doom as well as Magic the Gathering cards. Oh wait, Dr. Doom, not a football thing, right?
And Jordan Love and his evil cohort, things of that nature.
And we'll probably have to watch some John Boy stuff so we can talk about that too. So we got some work to do between now and when we can record that. So, anyways, thank you for taking this on, Austin. It means a lot to me as well. So I'm glad you enjoyed it, and we'll talk soon.
Yep. That's the Gorge? Nope, that's the wrong show. It's not the Gorge for you.
This is probably not the Gorge. We're probably not in the Gorge. If you hear anything about a Gorge, that is a teaser for the Spewpunk track here. Anyways.
Yeah, if you don't know about the Gorge, listen to Spewpunk and all the Gorge secrets will be disgorged for you, so.
Disgorging breath is what we have, you know?
Yeah, that's what Miles Teller uses in that film, is disgorging breath.